Welcome to the future of healing. Here at the Healership Academy, we are healing, learning, and growing together. It is a space where leaders become healers and healers become leaders. Lean in close because the journey begins now.
Hello and welcome. So we're starting an episode of the Healership Academy, and we have Dr. Kevin Preston on with us today. Hello, Kevin.
Hello. Thanks for having me on. Ready to dive in with you.
I'm so looking forward to this. We are all about vulnerability, courage, wellness, growth mindsets, and everything in between. What does it mean to have a well society? And so glad to tune in. I was looking at a lot of your content in the last couple of days, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I actually got to meet you in September at a big event, and I was intrigued by how you articulate your story and regeneration and health and well-being. So I know that the listeners are going to get a lot from this. So thanks for coming on. Did you want to just maybe introduce yourself? We can get started.
Yeah. So where to start? I'm an evolving human being, for one. And I've always thought it's really this cool human experience that we get to reinvent ourselves as many times as we need. And currently, I'm still in a season of being a doctor of Chinese medicine, and that's been almost 18 years now. And I get to work in the clinic, and then I do lots of events and retreats, and founded an event series called The New Human. And I'm always just curiously moving through life, but I am very driven by the question of, what creates wellness and health and vitality, and how to create experiences where that gets invited more. And so, yeah, a lot of my time and energy goes into those questions for sure.
All right. Yeah, I have a similar path. I went with medical anthropology. I was really curious about how, as humans, do we choose wellness in our society, and what are we doing that doesn't allow for it? Because I saw a lot of health disparities, and at that time I didn't have that language for it. I just knew something was off, and I wanted to explore why. And so I think that there's a synergy there when I listen to how well you are able to work with people and their understanding on what it means to be well. And I see that you do it so from such a consent-based focus, and I really appreciate that. So I'm curious, what is a new human? I do know people that go to your New Human event, and I heard about it last year, and I'm really intrigued about it. So I'm just curious, what is a new human?
I think that's also an evolving answer. And so I think each time I get asked that, I may have a different response. So it's kind of like in medicine where things shift and change all the time. And so I usually say something like, my current understanding is this. And along with, all of humanity, I get to keep evolving too. But I started having a lot of, I guess, insights or downloads after being in the clinic for so many years and doing lots of events, that I saw a vision for having a bigger gathering. And so this October is going to be our 5th New Human event. And it's really, for one, it's about being human, in all the layers, the messiness, the parts that we maybe try and hide away, or, these aspects of the complexity of all the things that we may see and feel and process. And I think especially on the planet right now, there's a lot to process. There's a lot to integrate. And so we often bring tools for teaching and sharing and educating about how to move through life in this time. But we also really build a lot of connection in community. And that's one of the driving forces there too, that when we come together in a like-minded way, where there's less judgment, there's less static in between humans, where we can actually just really see each other, and we look each other in the eyes, and we dive into deeper topics. And then we have music and frequency healing and all these layers. I think that, to me, it's like getting to build a recipe to allow mental, emotional, physical healing. And that aspect that binds us all together in some way. We all have some aspect of spirit, I think, inside us, and maybe we all have different languaging for that, but there's something that keeps the heart beating. There's something that is well beyond the physical body, at least in my view. And so we invoke that more, and we like to kind of spark the medicine in each human. And I believe all of us have huge, massive potential to share our gifts more, to share our hearts more, to be more open, to be more vulnerable. And so, yeah, we create a lot of different layers in person because I love being able to connect through technology. It's pretty amazing, and I haven't found anything that replaces the in-person experience. And it really does shift people, and it is about transformation and having people kind of step onto their path even more. And I know sometimes in the spiritual communities it's like, what words do you use? And a lot of words have been overused in some way, of like awareness and consciousness. And this year especially too, we're working on bringing our energy into the body more, learning how to stand, learning how to be sure-footed. And this theme that I've been teaching around a little bit this year called the eye of the storm, everybody's kind of heard that term, and it's like, how do we anchor and ground in a really healthy way for our bodies and our vitality, but also for our relationships and our communities, while there's always things going on in the world, and that perhaps will never change. So if we have a space where we can drop in together really deeply and witness each other, then yeah, huge changes happen. So that's a bit about the new human.
So good. And so I can see how when you're talking about that, have you taken some of those principles from your traditional Chinese medicine practice, and the work that you do to have it holding that container? And how are there those similarities? I could really see how, when you say there's a storm coming, well, how can we help build resiliency? So it's almost like you're creating it on the more collective level as well when you're holding a group container, but it must be very similar to when you're supporting an individual. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, there's definitely the parallels of the micro and the macro in the world, and so many things that we get to learn and have access to. There's a lot of input now. There's a lot of stimulus. We can take in so much information. And at the same time, sometimes it only stays mental. And then we don't really have these things land in the nervous system or land in the body. And as we call like embodiment, is helping align the integration aspect of having experiences and then see how that translates into life. And one of my good friends, Mike Elliott, him and I talk about this quite a bit of, integrity and alignment. And really it's like, in a day-to-day or week-to-week basis, does my calendar line up with the things that I say I want to do and the person I want to become? Because it does take inspired action. And so from a clinical point of view, and yeah, I've had the really beautiful privilege and honor of supporting thousands of people over the years in practice. They get to learn a lot about the body, and you get to learn a lot about humanity. And I love hearing people's stories and things that they've been through. And so it's taught me the human spirit is so resilient, and like we have so much depth to us, and it is often challenges and pain and discomfort that can invoke that and bring that forward. Or life is often inviting us into higher levels of understanding, and all these growth opportunities are around us all the time. And those core principles have been tested for thousands of years in Chinese medicine philosophy, which I've always found fascinating. So the event itself, even in real time, it's like a blend of ancient knowledge and philosophy, but also understanding and acknowledging that we're in a very different time on the planet than 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. Some of the esoteric literature in Chinese medicine goes back 5,000 years or more. And they've uncovered things in temples and different sites across China that references acupuncture, that references the 5 elements in the body and, the organ systems. And they were having really deep understanding. And it's hard to kind of fathom what thousands of years of tradition and building can actually give us. But this is why I get to practice in the way that I do now. So I do like building events with harmony and balance. And in Chinese medicine, that's probably one of the biggest underlying philosophies, is how do we create harmony in the body? And it really is actually living in harmony with nature and living in harmony with our environment as much as possible, which is easier said than done. But I've shared this many times. Chinese medicine views the body as a garden. And if we look at it that way, and we have the right amount of sunlight and water and nourishment and healthy soil, the garden can be abundant and overflowing. And so I like to create events like that. If an event was a garden, what would the ingredients need to create the most epic experience that is lasting and rooted and grounded, that actually transforms, but it stays with you. It's not just, oh, that was a great time, and then you go back to your life in the same way. And it's actually why we build integration calls online before the in-person events, to help prepare people to go through a really deep experience and a connected experience where they're not alone in that. And then we often have, I think last year we had maybe 3 calls over the month of October. It's like first weekend in October. This year it's October 2nd to 4th. And then we had follow up a week later. And I brought in support and other speakers and things to help people understand what they've just been through and how to integrate that and how to actually like get traction in their life so that they could transform the things that they actually want to change. And I feel really blessed. I'm still getting messages from last year's event of all the things that have happened and what people have noticed, and they met other people and now have businesses together, traveling together, or relationships started. And so you never know who you're going to meet in a space like this, but it's kind of a special gathering. It's almost become a bit of a spiritual pilgrimage with people coming from all over the world and across Canada, and lots from the US and countries beyond too. So it's it's growing. It's like it has a mind of its own.
Sounds like their lives blossomed in that, with that garden analogy, their lives blossomed. Maybe some roots went deep. Maybe they interconnected with other folks. So that sounds really amazing. And I'm sure that, a lot of us are probably craving that more in person. When you see the onset of more AI and technology, and is that a real video? Is that actually somebody?
Yeah.
People are starting to question, and it's almost like if you ate McDonald's all the time, you'd start to get kind of sick and you'd want just fruits and vegetables, right? And I think that it's going to be the same, where people are going to lean more into what all of our ancestors did, and meet around fire, right? Again, and see face to face and that human connection. And what are some signs that you're seeing that people are ready for this aspect of new human, or even just, going back to our ancestors and the way that it was all about connecting hearts and values, and
Yeah.
and that social ecosystem isn't separate from the rest of the ecosystem. What do you see? You think people are ready?
I do think people are ready, and I think a lot of people are ready and they don't even know they are, but they know what feels healthy over time. And you mentioned even sitting around the fire. We do a fire ceremony every new human event, and it's usually on the Saturday night after we've had a big day, and that's often really transformative and powerful to witness each other
Mhm.
and connect with the element of fire, which is also part of Chinese medicine. And even just to dovetail some of these pieces, we're in the year of the fire horse, from a Chinese astrology point of view. So there's a lot of fire energy, and what that can mean is huge transformation, huge shifts, a lot of energy, and sometimes it can be a lot. And we often need some balance with too much fire is challenging as well, but also the element of fire can consume and burn things down that need to be transformed. And when a forest fire naturally comes through, Mother Earth creates these all over the world through lightning and those types of mechanisms. When it's time, if no humans were involved and you're just observing the planet, this would be kind of a natural cycle, and it often cracks those acorns or those seeds open that need fire to actually sprout and germinate, which I find really fascinating. That sometimes as humans, like, we need to kind of go into the fire in order to create change. And so what I'm seeing in society wise, and I'll give you my health lens first, so many people are struggling with autoimmune conditions. They're struggling with inflammatory conditions. People are having digestive issues and gut issues across the board. And you could almost see all illness on an exponential curve, all of them, which has never really happened before at this level of intensity in human history. Like, the amount of inflammation in people's bodies right now is at a level I've never seen in the clinic before, and it keeps going up. And so that's a sign, hey, there's a big issue in society. What's happening? And then when we think about community, to me, healthy relationships and healthy community are precursors to health, that they're one and the same. And so we live in this hyper connected society, and it also seems that people are very disconnected from their core, their own strength, their own footing, their groundedness, because there's so much stimulus and chaos that can really push and pull a person in a million different directions. It's like, no wonder it's hard to keep feet on the ground and maintain healthy connected relationships and things. So I do see this counterculture movement too, where you probably see it, or maybe it's just my algorithm on my Instagram feeds. It's all farms and regenerative, communities of farm stays and these things with lots of fuzzy animals and things like that. And I do feel like a lot of people are craving that again. They want in-person analog experiences. And isn't it interesting? We have to almost like say analog, of like, meaning it's not AI, not digital, that we're actually just going to be in person together. And so the new human event is analog, and we have a screen and we have cameras and different things like that, but it is not live streamed on purpose. And we've been asked many times, but it hasn't felt aligned at this stage to extend that beyond that container. Not because we don't want to reach people, we do, but there's a certain element of being in person and holding that vessel of a safe container that allows people to drop in even more, where the cameras are off, people's phones are off. There's a very different quality in the room when we can integrate together in real time and sort of that raw authenticity, even like what we're doing right now. We're just live chatting as two humans, that there doesn't need to be a script. It's not AI given my answers. I'm not typing in the chat about, please answer this question, and I just want to answer it as me, as a human, in whatever imperfections that is, because I feel like that's part of the perfection, is that we don't have to be polished all the time, that we can just be human. And so this is what I'm seeing in society, that there's a swing away from the hyper stimulated day that a lot of people are really feeling. This is too much, because it is. The nervous system is often very dysregulated for a lot of people, and that actually builds inflammation over time, all these toxins and everything else. So people are like, wait a minute, this is not sustainable. And we look at all the systems that are in chaos right now. It's almost every major system that we've sort of relied on for generations and generations has a lot going on in it. And so I think a lot of people are sensing that, and they're feeling that. They feel the rumble in the ground that there's even more change coming. So what's important to me is maybe a question I would say to people is like, what are the things that are the most important to you in your life? And are you actually dedicating time and energy and focus to those? Or might you be getting massively distracted and putting your energy in a million different places, and then maybe wondering why things are not, shifting or moving, either with your health or connections and friendship and things. So yeah, we really aim to, in daily life, not just the event, to be very intentional about where your energy goes and how you're spending your energy day to day.
Yeah, I really like your video on inner healing. I think you did it about a year ago. I saved it actually because I think it's just done really well. And you talk a lot about self-responsibility, like we can know about it, but are we applying it? What are we choosing? How are we showing up? And what choices are we making in our relationships? Are we choosing ones that bring us peace, right, for our emotional self? And yeah, I think it was really well done. And, bringing it back to the event too, like you have different themes, and are you just called kind of the essence of that year? You're called to do a theme a certain way, and what does reunion mean to you for this year's event?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, each year is different, and it wasn't really planned that way. I wanted to do events that were really for the community and bringing people together, that would not be, a 7-day deep dive retreat, because I do those types of things too, and travel and adventure, and I love that. And I wanted to make it more accessible. And how do we get a great gathering together to create an energy wave and to create a movement? Because what I've also found in aspects of whether it's meditation or even just sharing, when we're in a bigger group together that way, and we're being held well and met well, and we're in a great space, beautiful energy flows, it amplifies dreams. It amplifies, you use the word blossoming. And I think that really fits, because I'd even heard from some of the speakers last year saying, hey, Kevin, since the event, things shifted in the most beautiful way. And it can amplify all of us, whether we're on stage or we're in the, vendor village, because we have a lot of businesses that come and set up as well. And so I think there's all these layers that get to, really come forward. And then it sparks something in all of us. it really sparks a shift, or it sparks a movement and change. And a lot of it does come from the inside, that there is the aspects of self-responsibility of what do we want to choose in our day-to-day lives, and how does that look in our actions, and how does it look in all the really tiny moments as well. It's not even necessarily the really big moments. So I think we're seeing like a huge shift. It feels like a really big wave that comes up underneath, and that's almost how the guidance shows up for me. And so most of the time, I share this a lot too, my greatest insights or downloads is when I'm like running in the forest, or sitting on a big rock or up against a tree. And that has kind of how it's been, basically how the new human events have been shaped, is I do kind of see it in my mind's eye, or I get guidance. I'm quite auditory in that way, or some people call it different aspects of clairvoyance or claircognizance. Like, I know things and I don't know how I know. And so for reunion, this theme this year, I was hiking. I remember where it was. I was hiking and running in the forest, which is kind of my happy place. And I often put the question out there, what is this year about? What is this theme for this event about? And I might put that out there at the start of a run or a start of a hike in the forest. And then I kind of let it go. And then it may kind of drift in here and there. And I was running down the hill. I remember, bobbing in between the trees, and I love running over roots and rocks. It makes my mind and body work and my agility, and it just brings something forward. And it's like I saw it in my mind's eye of like this glowing word, RE-union, reunion. And I knew that was the theme then for this year. I was like, oh, thank you. Okay. Wherever these ideas come from, I don't know, but it dropped in. And immediately too, I understood this is about coming back into unity. It's about coming back into like a oneness type view or consciousness, that we're all connected, that if I harm somebody, I'm really harming myself. And even to look at the planet that way, that if I'm not consciously treading my path on this planet, that's extractive, and it actually diminishes me in that way. And so I think we've lost so much connectedness that's available to us, and the disconnection from nature, or that we're separate from nature. We're not. Like, we are nature too. I'm not going to say we're animals necessarily, because I do sometimes think that the animals are more intelligent than us. And, I call myself out on that too, of decisions I've made or things. And I think the animals or the trees looking at me are like, what is he doing? Your brain's getting in the way. And so to come back into union with ourselves, and even the word reunion means to come back together after discord or separation. And I feel like that is what is needed on the planet right now, is that we got to come back together. We got to come back together in more authenticity, in non-judgment, in more acceptance of one another, that we're all just humans, and we're all terrified at a really deep level. Generally speaking, that's what I've seen in the clinic over many years, is that we're scared. We're scared of connection. We're scared of losing connection. We're scared on, things that can be quite scary on the planet. So if we understood that with one another, and, if we're hanging out in a space and it's like, I understand that, hey, there's this scared part of me, or that has fear, and maybe that's true in that person too, we would actually breathe differently, and we'd settle, and we'd see each other differently as well. And maybe the judgment wouldn't be so harsh. And then that clears out that static, or those things that interfere with healthy, authentic connection. And so to me, that's what it's about. Let's come back into healthy union. And again, that has to happen inside before it happens with other people too.
I agree completely. And, like the feminine and masculine within, it makes me think about that. And when you say authentic connection, I'm also I'll be going to yours, and I'll be going to one up near Prince George that I'm been asked to sing at, and in the evenings and around the fire. And Corrine, who's hosting the festival, she'd say, no, it's not a festival, Aurora, it's a retreat. It's a retreat. But she said, no, women and men are together. Like, we can't be separate. We need to come together, and we need to co-regulate and build that capacity together, and really echoing that. So it's interesting. Maybe it's a theme of the year in the consciousness of the collective. Yeah. And I totally I'm claircognizant as well, and sometimes I just know, right? And so I hear you on that. So this episode will go throughout the province, and so on Rogers TV, right? And so say someone's tuning in for the first time thinking about what is this all about, and then, they're just leaning in for the very first time, and they might think, hey, like that can't be a place for me. I don't know any of this stuff around wellness or spirituality or growth, and I'll probably be out of my element. What would you say to those folks that, they have an inkling, but maybe they can know that it's welcoming for them as well?
Yeah. Well, and even just to touch back for a moment, you mentioned the masculine and feminine, something that I was just over the moon about last year and even the year before too, as we've been doing our events. As I mentioned, this will be our fifth one coming up this year, that we had about a 40 to 60% ratio of men to women. And, of course, there's people from all walks of life and genders and orientation and things like that. And that's all very welcome. And it was really lovely to see so many men there, and there was a lot of couples, and there was people of all ages, which was also really beautiful. And there's actually a lot of people that were in the phase of life I'd consider elders. And I had men in their 70s coming up and hugging me and thanking me, and really feeling a lot moving through them. And that was deeply impactful for me to see several generations in one room, and you'd have somebody in their 20s sitting there beside somebody in their late 70s. And a lot of them were patients of mine, or people I've met along the way, or people that are curious, and they know there's something more. They know there's something more inside of them, and they know there's something more that we have available as humans together. And in these spaces, we get to help unlock that in each other in the most beautiful ways, just by sitting together, by like witnessing each other in a new way or in a new perspective. And so I think in a lot of cases, people have shared this with me over and over, that in these events, they feel like it's home, and they find like-minded community, and they find that they're accepted for who they are, and they're loved and met for who they are. And in a lot of cases, people that maybe were circuit breakers, or were the one person in the family that wants to do things a little bit differently, and we're asking questions, a lot of those types of people end up at our events. And then they feel not so alone. And they're like, oh, wait, there's a lot of other people like me, or feel this way, or think this way, or asking questions, and just curious about what else is the meaning here? What else is the purpose of us on this planet? And to ask those deeper questions, and then also to have fun together. We keep it light. We go really deep, but there'll be music, meditation. There'll be deep sharing from other international speakers, because I also want to bring people beyond just the local area to expose us to new thoughts or ideas or perspectives that maybe we hadn't thought about. So if somebody's curious about what is more in my life that could be unlocked or illuminated, or maybe there's a place that they don't even know that's waiting to blossom inside of them. And I do get that feedback quite a bit of, oh, I didn't know how much I needed that event. And then it was like one of the greatest experiences I've had in my life, and it changed all my relationships, and all these really powerful stories that they didn't even know why they were coming. It's not even like they had the intention of, I need to go to transform this. And a lot of people are coming for that too. Maybe they have like physical health ailments that they're looking to shift or transform or heal. I had a lot of feedback after last year too, that some people had physical ailments that resolved, like chronic ones. And they're telling me months later about how they're not on medication anymore. And some things like spontaneously resolved after that weekend, and they've been feeling the best they've been feeling for years. And so I think it's the intention, it's the way that we prepare, the way that we hold space for one another. And we actually have designated space holders as part of our crew to just help hold that energetic grid. And that is actually their role, is to just hold space for the event, that we build a lot of intentionality. And I think in that arena, in that space, we're able to actually transform even more, because we're not alone. And I also think that's something that's being felt a lot right now. A lot of people are feeling alone, even in a crowd of people. Or, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I can't go by myself, I don't know anybody. The amount of people that actually feel called to come to these events, and they email us all the time. I was just talking to my staff about it last week, that we get emails like, hey, this is something new. I don't know, I'm a bit intimidated, I'm a bit scared, like I'm probably coming on my own, I don't know anybody. And we're like, perfect, this is probably the perfect place for you to be, because you won't be alone in that energy. It starts to invite more openness and and connectivity for all of us. And we do that in a, I think, a really human way and grounded way that can actually meet the nervous system too, that's allowing for something to shift.
Yeah, in social research, we're really finding that love, connection, and belonging is really the antidote for all of the mental, mental affliction, addictions that, the stats that we're seeing. And so it sounds like you're really embodying what would be the solution in terms of that disconnect that has been widespread in North America, for various reasons we won't get into, but that's powerful. And I think that, we'll get back to learning more about how people can connect and learn more. But first, I think that it might be nice to kind of open the window to Kevin, like a little more about you. And I have a couple questions, about you as the man, as the person, and your walk and your journey. And so I'm really curious, what pain point did you experience or go through that kind of led you through to the place where you are now, your work through, and really embodies why you do what you do? Is there anything that kind of occurred for you at some time in your life?
Well, I think there's been many pain points for anybody that knows me, or, just seeing from the outside what's happening with, events or speaking or writing or podcasts or treatments, that I too still and have had many aspects of pain points in my life that I don't think any of us humans here on the planet can really move through life where there's not challenges, wounds, traumas in different ways, and big moments in life that kind of bring you to your knees. And those are often opportunities that I think life is inviting us into more levels of leadership and more levels of understanding, for ourselves and for other people. And I do think one of the themes that I've worked with in my life a lot over the years was, I mentioned earlier too, but I often felt very alone, even around people, even around loving people or being in spaces or rooms, that there was this really deep sense of aloneness and separateness. And it would really impact me at times. And I don't think I was aware of it consciously, though. It was this feeling I think I'd had for a long, long time. And, diving into my own psyche and, counseling and therapy and breath work and, retreats and all kinds of different mechanisms and meditation and getting support from other amazing guides and mentors and healers, that it starts to give us an insight of our own blueprint a little bit more. And it can, bring those things to the surface a little bit more. So I think the first part was just even becoming aware of, oh man, I feel quite alone at times, and I'd be very inwardly focused. And then over time, like starting to connect with people and starting to realize that was there. And I think it was actually unconsciously driving a lot of my work, as it often happens, for any, healers and guides. You don't have to be a healer. Like, often people's missions are rooted, or the seeds were planted in suffering or pain.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of the great leaders that I've read about in autobiographies and things, are people that have had like really powerful impact on the world. They all went through something really challenging, really big and challenging. And they decided to turn that into something of service. And so I think that's been moving through me first unconsciously years and years ago, of wanting to get into Chinese medicine and understand things deeper, and maybe not even understanding why I was there, but then the discovery over many years, and, feeling like what a gift it is to support people in getting their health and vitality back. And really, those are huge moments for me every time I see a patient, to just be in human connection and listen and let them tell their story and share what's happening for them. And then I can guide or reflect or, share insights or advice to help bring them back into connection with themselves. And that's often what it is. Separation is often what leads to illness. Even if we're around people, you may not know that somebody's feeling really alone, but they might be. And so as I've gone to, work on lots of layers of healing within me over time, I have way more insights of, oh yeah, other people feel this too. And then, these events kind of spontaneously come through me, and I see the visions, And I think only now, maybe even the last couple of years, like realizing, oh, of course I would create events where there's a beautiful
Mm.
amount of deep connection,
Yeah.
because that's what I wanted.
Mhm.
That's what I always wanted. And I can say I have that much more in my life now. But I did have to kind of face that or find that within myself and actually allow myself to go into some of those places that can be scary or challenging, and then reaching out for support. Because I will say that's something that helped transform a lot of these pain points that I had, was I would never ask for help before. Is that like independent lone wolf, like hyper sort of responsible for me, and would never want to burden anybody or ask for any help. It felt so um yeah, like antithetical to anything that I wanted to do, was like ask for anything. And this funny thing happened when I started asking for help, because I needed it. I was struggling, that I started getting it, and it started helping. This like novel idea of, wait, I asked for help, and we don't always get met in the way that we need or want, but we do often have support come in when we start asking. And we have to be open to receive that, or be seen in our struggle and seen in our vulnerability. And I think that's part of what blocks a lot of people from asking help, is just like the shame of how they're actually feeling, and letting somebody in to witness that or see that. We often want to be witnessed when we're winning and everything's good and I'm feeling amazing. But when we're struggling, how many people hide, or we're taught to like go to your room, isolate, to
Yeah.
resolve how you feel, and then come out when you feel better. And so I think a lot of us came by it honestly, or just almost the notion in society that nobody wants to see that. And so to
Absolutely.
build and cultivate healthy relationships where people can witness you and you can witness them, even when you're not feeling well, is so powerfully healing.
Raw vulnerability, like I spent a lot of my time in my early healing journey in my early 20s, intellectualizing it, understanding it, and then moving it to the body's a whole other journey, right? That's really important and critical. And so, when you were unpacking it and exploring kind of those pieces of that, lonely Kevin, was there a particular tool that helped you to go there, more from the body and the nervous system, like a deeper? Uh,
Yeah.
well, what
You
was that?
know,
If it was. Hmm.
the Gene Keys and the author Richard Rudd, and I'm so excited that Richard's joining us in person for this year's New Human event. He'll be speaking on all 3 days, and that man is a tremendously gentle, potent, poetic, I would even say prophet sort of vibe, but he doesn't come across that way. He's just a very grounded, amazing teacher. And he wrote a book called The Gene Keys, and there's a whole system. And the Gene Keys can kind of give you your map to your blueprint. And I started working with Gene Keys and reading and taking in a lot of the courses over 10 years ago now. And it helped me understand me more. And it almost helped take the personal nature away. It's more like concepts and archetypes of, oh, here's my blueprint. And what does that mean? What are my struggles? What are my gifts? What are my things that I can actually bring into the world really beautifully? And where are my pinch points, or those bottlenecks in my system where I'm probably going to struggle? And then reading about it, it helped really put a lens and a beautiful perspective on things that I had been trying to understand for years. And it was like one of the greatest breaths of fresh air of reading some of these things and having it land so deeply. When you read something and it hits you at a soul level truth, and you're like, oh, yes, that resonates so deeply. I've had that again and again, and I still have it. The more I read Gene Keys, it helps me understand my own beingness on this planet, which gave me so much relief. And then also understanding that everybody's shadows are collective. Like I said, we all, excuse me, we all have fears. We may all have insecurities in different ways. It may show itself in all kinds of expressions. But when you really distill everything down, there's actually so much similarity between all of us as humans. And then we can all have various levels of gifting that get to express a little bit differently. So I would say the Gene Keys has been a beautiful map to understand. I've worked with human design as well, and understanding the archetypes of humanity from the human design lens. Again, really beautiful. And then lots of treatment. like treatment one-to-one, somatic therapy, body
Okay.
talk, acupuncture, which I can do on myself, and I get treatment with others too, but a bit of all of it. And then not forgetting about the physical body of,
Mhm.
chiropractics and massage and osteopathy and these things, and acupuncture again, of course, too, that we need to nourish our physical body. Sometimes we can get caught up in the mind and the mental aspect, and even in spiritual communities, it's like, yeah, but we're still in this vessel. We're still in this physical form, where with our hearts and our organ systems. And that's one of the reasons I love Chinese medicine, is to be able to nourish that, and to nourish that with clean food and clean water, but also healthy community and connection. It actually does affect the physical body function. So I would say for me, it's been a really varied road on lots of different people and lots of different like layers of building a team that could help me be in the highest levels of expression, and trusting my intuition of when to get different sessions for things, and when to do family constellations is something I've spent a lot of time doing as well. And there's so many ways to kind of unpick these sticky points in our lives, and then our day-to-day life with the people around us is where all that life gets to be lived.
I strongly believe that the cryo method, was something that happened for babies to, a majority of our population. When a doctor came along and said, "Hey, this is what you need to do," right, for parents, and no blame on the parents because they were listening to that knowledge expert, right? And so I do believe that a lot of the angst, the unexplained angst that can be within a person's nervous system, deeply, deeply primal and in the psyche and in the body, and even affecting neurodevelopment. Um, and I believe that it affects rates of depression, anxiety, that just feeling, and you can't really explain why, and even just feeling of, say, loneliness, or say, you know, um, like something bad's going to happen, or I'm not loved. And, we need those neural pathways and receptors that are able to give and receive love. And there's so many that grow, right? And so when we talk about root cause, we obviously aren't treating the root cause in Western medicine and Western society. We know those systems aren't working, because if they did, and if they were, the stats would be coming down, and they're not, they're going up, right? And so it does take this beautiful remembrance and celebration of integrative and holistic knowledge and wisdom, of many forms of medicine. And when people start to enter into that story, it can be a lot all at once, right? Because they're feeling it maybe on the mental, emotional, spiritual, physical planes all at the same time, of what it means to take on that journey. And I before we go to the next question, I'd just love to hear, like, what is one or two words or key framing that you could support someone with? What would you say to even just start that journey when it feels like it's quite a big journey?
Yeah. You know, nature, honestly, is where I get a lot of my support and resourcing, and sitting with trees, sitting by the water, waterfall, creek, like those types of things, I really believe can help bring ourselves back into deeper connection, and to bring our body more into harmony, because nature always is finding a way to keep the balance. And we often get out of balance, right, with all the things we're talking about, and the challenges of life, the challenges of being a human, the intense emotions and difficulties. But when I go and sit with a big tree in the forest, or by some flowing water,
Mm.
all of that starts to calm and grounds, and I realize, like, oh yeah, I was becoming disconnected, or I was getting too much in my mind, or too much pulled into fear, stimulus, or stress, or those types of things. And then it even physically, bare feet on the ground in spaces like that, just put your feet in the water. It will change. It'll change you. It'll create a shift in your body, and the mind then can start to follow. And so, especially for those that maybe don't feel like you're being seen or met in your even closest relationships, or maybe you haven't cultivated those really healthy friendships yet, begin with you. Take some time in nature, and begin with you, and then the rest kind of will follow.
Nice. Love that. Nature and homeostasis. Um, okay. I know we've got about 15 minutes. So I'm going to go to, if you knew 5 generations from now, people would be watching this, what would you say to them and why?
Oh, such a juicy one. I'm going to take a breath, and maybe that'll actually be part of my answer, is that in our society, I think we have forgotten how to breathe. We've forgotten how to slow down and pause. And so I believe the generations in the future, they'll have remembered that, partly because they'll have needed to. And I think by necessity in our society, there's a reason breathwork has become really, really popular and almost mainstream in some ways. We've realized that we've become disconnected from how to breathe properly and how to breathe more deeply. And it's the invitation to remember the sacred pauses, remember those moments where we can actually slow down and come into stillness. And so our generation, I think, is getting to remember this and getting to practice it again. And we get to keep building on that. And I think that's going to be very, very lasting. And again, some of these principles are so ancient. They're not new concepts, but it seems almost new nowadays of, wait, you can take a pause or come into stillness or slow down, and to remember that that's always available in some way. It's always available to take a long, slow, deep breath to come back into presence.
That's beautiful. And what it makes me think of too is that the line of breath, like all of our ancestors have breathed. So even when we come in, like if there's been times in civilization of forgetting, what is that common truth and that common thread that's always passed through all of our ancestors is that core breath of life. And I love that because it also then makes me think of the ones to come and, why it is that we all want to have a more well society when we're working towards that. It's for those future ones that, wanting to kind of clean up the mess a bit, to just hit the nail on the head. Like they got off track, like a plane that goes a bit off track. And by the time we're now, it's quite far off track, but it's that little remembrance to get us is sometimes just that little bit. And it sounds like you're really doing meaningful work to help support that with individually and in groups and collectively. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom and spreading that more across wherever this lands, to whoever might hear it and benefit. And so is there anything, just last thoughts, questions, comments that you might have or think of that you want to share into this space before we go into closing?
Yeah, thank you so much. The little things, you just touched on it. It is often the little things day to day, and that we don't always have to create these huge, impactful experiences. That's great too and can be transformative. But I would say, you're in the grocery store and you just smile at somebody, or you say hello, or you make eye contact just for a moment or two to acknowledge the other human that you're seeing, or doing something nice. It doesn't have to cost a lot. You can buy somebody a coffee or buy a little amount of groceries or something, but it doesn't even have to be financial. It can just be like sending a nice note to a friend of yours, or expressing some gratitude to a parent or a child, or somebody that may need it. So it's like even just slowing down, taking a breath of who in your life in this moment likely needs to hear from you, or maybe they don't even need it, but it would help their day. It would bring a smile to them and doesn't cost anything. Like just send a text or a message or send a voice note, or even better yet, call them randomly. Let's bring back the unplanned phone call that we all used to do in this generation of millennials and things, going up in the 80s, and having dial phones and dial up internet and all the rest of what did we do before all this technology. We would just call each other, or we'd go and meet them at the end of the driveway, or see them at the park in the neighborhood, and it would just be more spontaneous and less scripted. And
Yeah.
so I'm aiming to create that in my life more, where sure, I plan and schedule things because I have a full life. And I also, it sounds kind of funny or paradoxical, is like I plan in space for spontaneity, you know, just to allow life to see what happens, what wants to move through me. And so I think these are the things that we're craving at a society level, at a nervous system level, that let's invite that more. Let's come back into connection, into more spontaneity, that we don't have to have every minute of every day planned, because I don't think the body likes living under those conditions that much either. You know, let's be more like nature and
Mm.
different seasons that move through our lives, and just to listen a little bit more, and kind of soften our footsteps as we, tread into rooms and spaces, knowing that there's other people in there that have feelings too. And so I'm excited, truly, about where we're at in humanity, despite what looks like, a lot of really big challenges. I am seeing, you know, light fractals open up and come through in smaller communities, connecting and helping each other and healing and witnessing each other, and sharing in really beautiful and vulnerable ways. And I'm getting myself more and involved in leading men and men's work and things like that, because I see that as a huge need in our society, and I've needed that too. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that can, change the shape of society as well. And so, if there's any men watching this, like, I'm inviting you personally to come to the New Human, because we need more healthy men. We need more healthy men in society, and support and having resources allows us to step into that leadership and guidance more, and to support each other. And of course, this goes well beyond men, but I'm seeing that as something to name specifically, that there'll be a lot of men at this event too. So you won't be the only guy in the room if you show up there. And then imagine what we can create together when we have that support of fellow humans, and men and women, and much beyond that too, that we get to guide and lead children more clearly, and we get to live as an example of what's possible. So let's keep leaning in together.
I love that. And you don't have to be all prim and polished and already have it figured out. We can meet you in that space of being messy. And I recognize there's patterns I have. I don't even know what it means yet, and I don't want to. I don't want. Do I have to come when I'm healed enough? Do I have to come when I'm polished enough? Like, no, that raw vulnerability, and obviously not causing harm. Obviously, unconditional love comes with boundaries, right? But it also comes with grace for mistakes, and that's the kind of triangle I like to live with. But I think sometimes people hold back because they're like, well, can I fall apart? What if I fall apart? Will I still be accepted? Yes. Yes. Right. I
Yes.
mean, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what we're inviting, is just, being human together, and
Okay.
in whatever form that takes, and whatever's expressing through that, we can hold each other in that. And yeah, we can offer grace, and we can receive grace in return, and, keep showing up, doing our best.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can people find out how to get a hold of you, or go to this event, or other events, or even your private practice that you have? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we've got two websites, newhumanevents.com. And then you'll also find me on Instagram and social media is just Dr. Kevin Preston, Dr. Kevin Preston. And then I also have a website that's drkevinpreston.com. And that's kind of more the clinical side. But yeah, Instagram is kind of where you'll see me in and out a little bit. I'm not always super consistent on there, because I'm often in the woods hanging out, grounding and trying to live the best way that I can to be healthy and vital. So when we do these big events, that we're prepared and we get to show up really beautifully. And so yeah, event tickets are on sale right now for the New Human, October 2nd to 4th in Enderby, BC, at the Splatseen Community Center's beautiful Indigenous roundhouse, that if you've never been there, oh my goodness, it is one of the most powerful buildings that I've been in and had the good fortune to lead and have these events in. And you'll see what I mean. If you join us, you'll walk in that door and probably take a deep breath in of what you'll feel, because that happened for me and it's happened for many other people. So yeah, really excited. And so you can get tickets through our Instagram, or yeah, on our website, newhumanevents.com.
Awesome. Thanks for the time today. I hope that we can get you on again and we can do maybe a men's kind of topic session as well. And so I'm sure that the listeners got something, if not a whole piece of the pie, if not a crumb, like a whole pie, I think, on this episode. So I hope that you journey well in everything that you do, and we'll stay connected. Thanks.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and yeah, just appreciate the opportunity to connect and share.
Yeah.
As we conclude this chapter at the Healership Academy, I want to take a moment to look back at how far we've come together. To our guests, thank you for sharing your wisdom and heart. You've helped us see how leaders can truly lead from a state of connection and safety. To our sponsors and viewers, your support is the foundation of our work. You make it possible for us to bridge the gap between research and community change. Thank you for being part of this journey. The path continues, and I'm so grateful to walk it with you. See you in the next chapter.